the 3rd of August, 2025. The calm waters off the Strait of Hormuz shimmered under the morning sun, a picture of routine for the crew aboard an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer. The ship, temporarily detached from the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group due to a critical engine malfunction, drifted in isolation, awaiting technical support. On board were 287 U.S. sailors, most unaware they were minutes from the deadliest surprise of their lives. From 31 miles away, Iranian surveillance scanned the scene. To their commanders, this was no mighty warship shielded by the fleet, just a vulnerable, lightly armed target ripe for destruction. Their miscalculation would become one of the costliest mistakes in Iran's naval history. Without warning, 5 Shahed 238 suicide drones swept in from multiple directions, each carrying a 66-pound warhead designed to shred steel on impact. Seconds later, a Red 500 supersonic missile screamed in at over 3,500 kilometers per hour, slamming directly into the ship's aft propulsion section. The explosion ignited 14,000 gallons of fuel, the fireball towering high enough to be seen for miles. The shockwave rattled every bulkhead. 2 American sailors, one just 19 years old, died instantly. 5 more were badly wounded, including a chief petty officer with burns over most of his body. Smoke poured into the sky, but above the chaos, the stars and stripes still fluttered defiantly. On the Iranian side, celebrations erupted. They believed the lone ship had been eliminated. What they didn't realize was that their target was part of America's most advanced carrier strike group just 90 nautical miles away, and now on full alert. The encrypted distress burst hit the USS Gerald R. Ford at 8:47 a.m., 2 minutes after the blast. Ship disabled, casualties confirmed. Missile strike, origin, Iranian corvette. For a beat, the Combat Information Center held its breath. Then Rear Admiral Douglas Keller's voice cut through. "We respond, now." 90 seconds later, 2 F-35C Lightning IIs clawed into the sky, afterburners smearing heat across the deck. Their tasking was simple and ruthless. Find the attacker, stream the picture to the fleet, and clear a path for retribution. As the stealth fighters climbed, an E-2D Hawkeye on station stitched the battlespace together via Link 16 and cooperative engagement capability, pushing a single, fuse track to every cockpit and console in the group. From a nearby forward strip, 5 A-10 Thunderbolt IIs lifted off low and heavy, each armed with the GAU-8A Avenger 30mm cannon and GBU-38 precision bombs. Trailing them, 5 UH-60 Blackhawks carried Navy SEALs, rescue swimmers, and medics to the crippled destroyer. Engines, rotors, and radios meshed into one purpose: stabilize the wounded, punish the shooter. At 9:12 a.m., the F-35Cs found the culprit, an Iranian corvette, skulking just beyond the clutter of coastal traffic. They marked the target silently, painting it with sensor fusion and pushing coordinates to the inbound strikers. The A-10 rolled in from altitude, noses down, guns spooling. The first burst of depleted uranium rounds walked across the corvette's bridge. The second stitched the engines. The third smashed through the midships. 2 2,000-pound GBU-38 followed in a staggered drop, penetrators biting deep before blooming into orange shock. The detonation launched plating into the air and collapsed bulkheads from bow to stern. When the spray settled, the sea boiled where the hull had been. There was no ship to sink, only fragments. While the Thunderbolts aggressed, the Blackhawks flared over the destroyer's deck. SEALs secured the perimeter. Medics sprinted below to triage burns and shrapnel wounds. Damage control teams fought heat, smoke, and ruptured lines. Overhead, the F-35Cs orbited, their sensors sweeping for follow-on threats. Back in the flag space, Keller's tone stayed level. They crossed the line. We neutralized the launch site completely. Target folders opened, satellites cued, and a name flashed across the strike board: Operation Judgment Spear. By 9:20 a.m., the Ford's War Council was in session. Satellite and signals intelligence had already fixed the launch origin: a Tier 1 Iranian UAV and missile hub 172 miles inland, just west of Bandar Lenga. It bristled with ROD-2 surface-to-air systems, Birkin 9 batteries, hardened drone shelters, and a command bunker feeding targeting data to coastal units, roughly 200 IRGC personnel on site. At 10 a.m., Rear Admiral Keller authorized the strike. The package was calibrated for speed, precision, and deconfliction. 10 Farad 15E Strike Eagles, each with 2 GBU-53B Stormbreaker glide bombs, 6 MQ-9B Reapers for real-time laser designation and battle damage assessment, 5 Switchblade, 600 loitering munitions to kick down the door, and 3 EA 18-gram Growlers to smother radar and jam comms for the opening minute and a half. Tanking windows were set. Routes hugged terrain and weather to stay outside known threat fans. At 10:41 a.m., the Growlers lit the spectrum, pouring noise into Iranian search and tracking bands. Switchblades followed, descending at over 100 miles per hour. Their 33-pound warheads smashed 3 ROD-2 launchers and 2 long-range dishes in under a minute, forcing local batteries into blind, panicked firing. The MQ-9Bs slid into their orbits and began painting aim points, fuel farms, drone hangars, the bunker's blast doors. From 35,000 feet, the Strike Eagles pushed in on staggered lanes. 20 Stormbreakers came off the rails in a rippling release, each seeker fusing radar, IR, and data link to ride a curving glide onto the laser spots. The effects stacked fast. A fuel depot holding 120,000 gallons of aviation fuel erupted, a column of flame punching 400 feet into the haze. A penetrator hit collapsed the bunker inward, killing the senior IRGC officer on site. A drone shelter disintegrated, taking at least a dozen Shahed airframes with it. Secondary blasts rolled across the complex as ammunition cooked off under reinforced roofing that suddenly wasn't there. 90 seconds after the first impacts, the base's operational picture flatlined. Tehran scopes went quiet, no uplinks, no search returns, no coherent counterfire. The Eagles climbed and aggressed on time. The Growlers throttled back the jamming. The Reapers lingered just long enough to confirm the kill chain. By 10:49 a.m., every U.S. aircraft was back in safe airspace. Final assessment: 28 enemy combatants killed, all military, roughly $300 million in missile and UAV assets destroyed. 0 civilian casualties. On the live feed, the target area resolved into scorched earth and twisted frames. In Tehran's operations rooms, silence held for a beat, then hardened into plans for a desperate reply. The Ford strike group was already shifting to meet it. By 12:15 p.m., satellites and the Ford's E-2D Hawkeye saw the pattern. 3 Su-24 fencers lumbering off a southern Iranian runway, each lugging a Kh-29 anti-ship missile built to crack open hulls. At the same moment, sonar techs aboard the USS Thomas Hudner picked up a faint, rhythmic thrum, the signature of a Fate-class attack submarine sliding in at 11 knots, nose up, trying to knife beneath the carrier group's shield. Admiral Keller didn't raise his voice. "Engage all threats before they're in range." Aegis took the handoff. The SPY-1D radar on the cruiser Normandy painted the fencers at 280 nautical miles, long before Iranian sensors could sniff the fleet. Through cooperative engagement capability, the picture fused across every console and cockpit. Fire control cleared, and 2 SM-6 vaulted from vertical launch cells, going Mach 3+ in seconds. 19 seconds later, the lead Su-24 vanished. 4 seconds after that, the second broke apart into a cone of glittering debris. The third pilot dropped for the deck, betting on sea clutter and luck. He met neither. An F/A-18E Super Hornet already on combat air patrol turned into him and loosed an AIM-120D. The AMRAAM rode radar energy straight to center mass. The blip winked out and did not return. Below, the ocean held its breath. The Fate-class crept toward torpedo range, alternating passive listens with cautious pings. The Navy moved first. A P-8 Ampere Poseidon stitched the sea with 16 sonobuoys, triangulating the contact in under 90 seconds. An MH-60R Seahawk arrived, dipped its active sonar, and tightened the solution. Hudner answered with a RUM-139VL ASROC, booting a Mach 54 lightweight torpedo into the water ahead of the intercept point. The Mach 54 ran at 40 knots, homed on the sub's screw and detonated within 50 yards of the bow, close enough to shear fittings, trip breakers, and leave the boat dead in the water without rupturing the pressure hull. With emergency batteries bleeding and a second weapon already queued, the Iranian captain blew ballast and backed out, wounded and humiliated, trailing bubbles toward the shallows. From first detection to last splash. 16 minutes. U.S. casualties. 0. Enemy aircraft down. 3. Submarine. Mission aborted. The Gulf went still again, and the forward strike group remained untouched. The message to Tehran was unmistakable. Approach a U.S. carrier group, and you enter a kill box you will not leave. Reconnaissance from an RQ-4 Global Hawk and a P-8 Ampere Poseidon exposed something worse than the first sight. A second Iranian control hub hidden among warehouses and civilian docks near Bandar Abbas. The node was quietly feeding targeting data to remaining missile forces along the coast. Leaving it intact meant inviting another shot at the carrier group. Rear Admiral Keller's order was immediate and spare. Shut them down permanently. The plan emphasized surgical effects beside civilian infrastructure. The package: 8F, A, 18E Super Hornets from the Ford, each with 2 GBU 31 2,000-pound JDAMs for hardened structures, 4 MQ-25 Stingrays to keep jets topped up and loitering, 3 EA 18-gram Growlers to flood the spectrum with deception and noise, and 2 MQ-9B Reapers for real-time laser designation and battle damage assessment. Routes were sea-skimming, timing deconflicted to the second. At 15:42, the Growlers went first, pouring, jamming into search and tracking bands and spawning ghost echoes across Iranian scopes. Within moments, the local picture blurred into static. The Reapers slid into their orbits and painted 3 primary aim points: the underground command bunker, a forest of antenna masts, and a fortified hangar suspected of housing ballistic missile guidance systems. Secondary marks included a fiber optic relay hut and generator farm. The Hornet streaked in at 600 knots, hugging the sea until the last mile, then popped up and ripple-released 16 JDA Guidance Road GPS, INS midcourse, with terminal laser updates from the Reapers. The first pair punched through the bunker's blast doors. The roof folded a heartbeat later. The next impacts scythed the antenna farm, dropping steel lattices like wheat. 2 more weapons bit into the hangar. A sympathetic detonation rolled through stacked crates, and the structure peeled open as if unzipped. A ruptured fuel manifold flashed into a rolling fireball contained inside the military perimeter, clear of the civilian key. Iranian SAM crews fired sporadically into the jamming fog. Nothing tracked clean. In 4 minutes, 27 seconds from first pulse to last detonation, the sector's radars went black and command links fell silent. The Stingrays topped the Hornets on egress. The Reapers lingered just long enough to count the smoking holes. Assessment: command node eliminated, guidance systems destroyed, antenna arrays mangled, fuel and munitions consumed. Operational control in the Strait severed civilian casualties: 0. By the time emergency trucks reached the gate, the complex was a crater rimmed with twisted steel. Over the Gulf, the air felt different. Not calm by chance, but because potential threats had been methodically erased. As the last Super Hornet crossed the coastline and the Growlers throttled back their jammers, the strike group reformed in measured symmetry. Deck crews on the damaged destroyer had the fires out and power stabilized. Medics reported the wounded were stabilized and en route to higher care. On the Ford's bridge, Admiral Keller watched the horizon turn a clean metallic blue and spoke without theatrics. Message delivered. We're done here. Over Tehran's boards, the emptiness was louder than any siren. Sector radars showed no returns. Command links that had moments ago threaded missile batteries and drone pads now terminated in dead air. No second wave rose from the runways. No submarine closed the range. The Gulf that had seemed so small in the morning suddenly felt vast and unwelcoming to anyone hunting carriers. For the sailors and aviators of the Gerald R. Ford Strike Group, the day distilled into 6 beats. Survive the first strike, erase the shooter, silence the launch hub, crush the counterattack, remove the second control node, hold the sea, Each beat landed because the pieces meshed, Aegis painting the sky before the enemy could. F-35Cs fusing the picture. Super Hornet striking on time. Reapers and Switchblades cutting blind spots into the target set. Poseidon and Seahawk turning the deep into a trap. No single platform won the fight. The architecture did. Cooperative sensors built a common truth. Jammers bent the enemy's vision. Precision weapons wrote final sentences at exact coordinates. The same rhythm carried through the rescue SEALs securing decks. Corpsmen triaging burns and shrapnel. Damage control teams bleeding heat out of scorched compartments until steel felt like steel again. By nightfall, the carrier's running lights drew a quiet ladder across the water. There were no victory speeches, only maintenance cards, flight hour logs, and the hum of turbines settling into cruise. The lesson, however, traveled farther than the wake. A U.S. carrier strike group is not a single target. It is a fortress that sees first, shoots straight, and does not argue twice. No more drones rose. No missiles searched for the task force. The Strait of Hormuz returned to ordinary traffic and long swells. Calm did not arrive by chance. It arrived because every path to escalation had been located, measured, and cut. The Navy hadn't started the fight. It had finished it.